So welcome to another CRaFTi video. Today's one is actually going to be a little bit of an introduction video that's going to go up just before one of my CRaFTi Experiment videos. And originally I was going to put this as part of the first video, but I ended up yapping for too long. So I'm going to do it as a separate introduction video. And I thought it would be nice just to sort of, if you've never seen jelly plates before, or if you're not sure like what they are, what sizes they come in, what other tools that you might need to be able to do jelly printing as well, I thought it'd be nice to have just a little introduction kind of video, because I'm going to be doing there's definitely going to be 3 to begin with of these experiment videos with jelly printing. The first one's going to be looking at different types of paint, not necessarily brands of paint, but the types of paint. So like fluid acrylics, matte chalk paint, heavy bodied acrylics, metallics, things like that. Then the next one is going to be looking at transparency of paints versus opaqueness of paint and the different results that you get, and why maybe you've tried jelly printing in the past but you've not got the results that you wanted. It could be because you've been using translucent paints where you should have been using opaque paints to get the differentiation between layers and things. And then the third one is going to be looking at different types of papers. So all of these things, the reason behind the experiment videos is not necessarily something that I have never done before. Like I've never done, like it's not like I've never done jelly plate printing before. I've been doing it for quite a while, but I have not like properly looked into all sorts of different papers to use on the jelly plate, or I've not properly looked into opaque paints versus transparent paints. I've kind of sort of picked up opaque and transparent to do certain different things, but I've never actually sort of sat down and gone, okay, this is like red, yellow and blue of transparent paints, red, yellow and blue of opaque paints, to kind of see the differences in the results and things as well. And I would say that I've never looked at fluid paints, heavy bodied paints and matte chalk paints on the jelly plate, but I'm going to be refilming that video, so technically that video is going to be a redo of me already trying them, because my camera was driving me absolutely bananas and it kept not focusing, and I'd have to like stop recording, turn it off, turn it back on again. So I have a new camera now, which is what I'm filming this introduction video on, and all of my videos going forwards as well. So hopefully this gorgeous, lovely new camera will not do the stupid focus thing. It looks like it's coping really well with it's this sort of glare on the packaging that was really messing up my old camera. Anytime I would show something up close and it had a package on it, it would just completely throw off the focus and I couldn't get it back in focus. So anyway, you don't really need to know all of that, but this introduction video is just going to be looking at some of the jelly plates that I own. There are many more on the market and there are different brands as well. The 2 that I know of are Gel Press and Gelli Arts. My original plate, I started with a 6x6 one. And my original plate was a Gelli Arts one, but when my mum saw what I'd been doing with my gel plate years ago, she wanted to try one. So I thought, instead of her having to go through, you know, the first few stages of breaking in a new plate, which we'll sort of go through in one of the CRaFTi Experiment videos as well, I thought it would be nice if I gave her my old plate, which then works really nicely, and then I ended up getting a gel press plate after that because it was cheaper, basically. So that's kind of why all of my plates actually are gel press ones. There are a few different like brand collaborations with gel press that I have here as well, but all of them are actually gel press ones. But both of them, Gel Press and Gelli Arts, are both comparable because I've tried both of them. They're both like the same really. It's pretty much just which one's at a better price at the time of buying one of them. So a few of the different sizes that I own are the 6x6 one, which is one of my favourites. You can see it's quite dirty in the packaging. But if you wanted maybe a slightly smaller square, then Lavinia Stamps have teamed up with Gel Press. I bought this one quite a few years ago now, actually, probably like 2 or 3 years ago. But this is the 4-inch square, I'm pretty sure. So this is a 6-inch square, and then this is a 4-inch square. So if you wanted to go slightly smaller, you can get smaller squares as well. And if you want to go even smaller with a square as well, you can get the petite packs. This is just the circle from there, but you would have a small square, so you can go even smaller with your squares as well. So I think that would be a 2-inch one. So you can do 6-inch, 4-inch, 2-inch. If you really love squares, you could invest in all the different square kind of sizes. You can also get different circular ones. I brought the 4-inch circle a little while back, and one of my favourite little ones is the 2-inch circle. I've used this so much, and you've probably seen this in older sped up videos. I did some cool techniques having it on a plate and spinning it on a Lazy Susan and putting Pebeo Diner paints onto it and creating like circular kind of patterns. I also have done the hand sanitizer and alcohol inks with the round plate, the little mini round plate as well, because it fits really nicely onto my favourite size of card. So you can do it like directly onto there, and then you get the perfect sort of topper circle shape. And the square, they also do triangle, hexagon, a rectangle, and also an oval shape as well in those small petite packs, but they work really nicely for your card making. So I mean, this video showing you all of the different plates, I'm not sort of trying to go, you need all of these different plates. I'm trying to sort of show you what plates there are. So maybe you've not tried them before, maybe you have a plate and you feel like it's not working for you, maybe there's a different size that would work better, maybe you would prefer to have something where you can see those gorgeous organic edges that you get, but you work on small cards, so you want some of the mini plates. Maybe you work on a 6x6 card, but you love circles and you really want to have that organic edge that you get with the edge of the Gelli plate as well. Or maybe you like making smaller cards or bigger cards, whichever, and you just want a really large plate so that you can print multiple backgrounds onto it edge to edge, so you don't see the edge of the Gelli plate, you actually just get the pattern straight to the edge as well. So hopefully this kind of shows you what sizes there are on offer. Then you can also get this 5x3 one, which kind of is a sort of skinnier version of my favourite size of card. So perhaps you want to print a design and you want the kind of organic edge of the edge of the plate. And what I mean by the organic edge is over time, as you're working, if you don't clean your Gelli plate, you get like this build up of gorgeous like layers of all of the different paint that you've used. Maybe there's a bit of metallic in there, you know, all sorts of different bits and pieces. And when you then pull a print off of it, you might get that beautiful grungy kind of edge to the edge of your print. So if you like that look, then you might want to go for a plate that's smaller than the size of card or project that you like to work on, because then you'll be able to see that edge. But also, if you prefer larger cards and maybe a DL is your favourite size of card, or slimline if you're in elsewhere, not in the UK, this one might be the perfect one for you. This is called the Boblong, and it is pretty much a perfect DL kind of size. So if you do love your DL cards, then you can perfectly make your DLs. But if you like your DL cards and you want to be able to make 2 to 3 of them from one print, then you could get a larger plate, and then you can just cut it up into the DL kind of size as well. So there's so many different ways of choosing which Gelli plate you want. And if you kind of just have a think about it before you dive into one, or maybe you've got one, it's not been working and you want to rethink, maybe it's the size of plate, maybe if you had a different size it would work better for the way that you work. For example, if you're always putting too much paint on your plate, but maybe you do still like working on smaller projects, if you get a larger plate, then it doesn't matter that you've put too much on there, because you can brayer it out and then you can just focus on a small section of it. You don't have to put a piece of paper over the entire thing, you can just work in the middle section of it as well. You know, so we might even show that kind of thing later on in the experiment videos, because I have tons of things planned to show different like household items that you can use to make patterns, different ways of using your stencils and things. As I said, I want to experiment with different types of papers to hopefully get different sorts of effects and all sorts of different things that I really want to sort of dive into with Gelli plate printing. I mean, I always love playing with a Gelli plate, but a lot of the work that I do, it doesn't allow me to use a Gelli plate. Like the companies that I work with don't make a Gelli plate, or, you know, if, for example, like with Tonic, if Jodie's going to be recreating one of the cards that I make on the telly, she's not going to have a jelly plate to be able to recreate a background. So I don't get to play with it as much as I want. So I feel like if I do this experiment kind of series, that it will be broken up with other videos in between as well. But I thought if I do this kind of series, then I get to play, but hopefully it will also kind of inspire you. Maybe you've seen something that I've used, you've got something similar, and you think, oh, I'm going to give that a go. And, you know, maybe it'll spark a whole journey into your jelly plate printing as well. But and this is the largest one that I have as well. I think it's an 8x10, this one. Oh no, it's bigger. It must be 9x11 maybe? I thought it was an 8x10. No, it's 9x11. So a really nice big sized one as well, which if I wanted to, for example, if I was doing lots of card making, I could print a big sheet and cut it into 4 of my backgrounds, or I could just lay 4 of my favourite size onto here and pick up 4 separate backgrounds from doing something large on the jelly plate as well. So, and you can also get even bigger ones than this. I think the largest one I've seen anybody use, I think it is 20 inches by 16 inches, which I think is roughly like A1 UK size, which is double A3 or 4 times A4, so basically 4 times the size of this plate. You can get ones that big as well if you really love working on a big scale, or maybe you like to create monoprints and you want to sell them. If you could do ones that big, you could instantly put them into a large frame and, you know, make a nice profit from selling gorgeous pieces of artwork as well. So those are kind of like all of the gel plates that I have in different sizes. I do have obviously a few of the smaller petite ones as well, but those are all of the sizes. And then I thought I would also show you how I like to work with them as well. If you've seen me use them in videos, you'll see that I often have them mounted onto an acrylic block, because I think this sort of helps with maybe you're working in an art journal and you can flip it over and press it onto the surface of your art journal, or if you are, well, for example, if you are using maybe the 6x6 plate, but you're working on a piece of card that's this size, but maybe you've done a multiple layered print and it's got an opaque colour on the back, so you can't really see the pattern. If you've got it on something transparent like this, you can then flip it over, see what the pattern looks like, and know which bit's your favourite and where to place your card on the back of the jelly plate to lift the print off. I hope that makes sense. So what I like to use is the original block that I bought when I bought my 6x6 jelly plate, was this Papermania 6.5 by 6.5 inch acrylic block. It's one of these thicker kind of ones, but it works really nicely as a mount for your gel plate. So that one's a really good one. I also love using my Dina Wakley Media 5x7 kind of acrylic block as well. This one works really, really nicely. This is a thinner one, so it's got a little bit of give to it as well, but that one works really, really nicely. If you have the largest plate, the best thing that I have found for working with the largest plate, I mean, you can either leave the back acetate on there so that it's not sticking to your surface, and then you can still pick it up. It's a little bit flimsy, but you can do it. But if you get a clean or brand new die cutting plate, so this is a Spellbinders one, and obviously this one is clear so you can see through it. You could also use the Sizzix one because that one's clear and you can see through it as well. So this works really, really nicely. Or if you don't have a machine that requires a clear one, so you may not have a spare plate laying around and you don't want to buy one because they often come in packages of 2, you can definitely use your Tonic plates as well. You could use the Tonic white plate. I know you wouldn't have the ability to see through to the other side of your jelly plate, but it would allow you to sort of pick it up if you wanted to, or move it around your desk as you're working. Maybe you know, you've got this big plate on here and you want to just be able to slide it out of the way so you can carry on working in your desk how you like to work, or maybe you want to pick it up and put it somewhere else whilst you carry on doing something else, and then you can bring it back in again. So it's all kind of ways of doing that sort of thing, that you want to kind of have it mounted onto something. And then also the smaller ones, just your largest kind of acrylic block that you may have for stamping is always really nice just for mounting your smaller ones as well. So that's kind of gel plates, and then how you would want to mount them to be able to use them easily. So I'll come back in a second and we'll go on to brayers. kind of cheat versions of barons, because I've never actually used a baron, and I'll sort of explain a few other bits and pieces that you might want to use to apply paint to your surface as well. Okay, so first of all, let's look at brayers, because that is the sort of well-known thing that you would use with a jelly plate. You tend to have a brayer to bray out your paint onto the surface to create a nice thin layer to be able to put detail into, or to pull off something else that you're doing, or to do an image transfer, whatever you want to do on your jelly plate. So there are different sizes of brayers, and there are different types of brayers as well that you can purchase. So these are, I've built these up over a long time. My first few videos, I'm pretty sure, I think it was maybe like 7, 8 years ago. The first time I ever used my jelly plate is one of my sped up videos on my channel, and back then I was using my great grandmother's brayers. I do still have them, but I haven't found them since I've moved and been unpacking. But even brayers, you know, that are decades old will work as well. So if you have a brayer from something else, you can definitely use that on your jelly plate as well. You don't have to go out and buy a brand new brayer for using on your jelly plate. But there are tons of different ones that you can get, and they've all got different properties to them. So the ones that I tend to gravitate towards the most are these three, which are all hard kind of brayers. They don't have much give to them when you squeeze them. They're kind of like a hard rubber sort of brayer, and I do like having the 3 different sizes. I think if you're just starting off, a 4-inch one is fantastic, but I do really like having the mixture of different sizes, and you can see they're very well loved with the amount of paint that is splattered all over the handles of them. And this one you will have seen relatively recently in one of my sped up videos, where I did an ombre of the pink ink matte chalk paints behind one of Sue Wilson's floral cover plate dies. So this works really nicely for creating just large ombres just on cardstock, not even onto your gel plate as well. So maybe you've just never looked at brayers before, but you can definitely use them to create simple backgrounds just onto cardstock without having the gel plate as well. But this one's a 4-inch one, this one's a 2-inch one, and this one is a 6-inch one. So that's sort of the variety of sizes that you can get in the hard rubber brayers. You might have also seen this little brayer, which is the Ranger one. This is quite useful because this piece comes out, so you can soak that in water to get all of that paint residue off of there, or you can do cool things like wrap elastic bands around it, wrap some twine around it, and create a texture tool for your jelly plate as well, so you don't just have to use it as a plain brayer. But this one is also a hard rubber brayer, and this is the original one. This one was red, but also the the Diane Reevely ones that are pink, they are this hard rubber as well. So if you're looking for the hard rubber small Ranger brayer, you're looking for the red one or the pink one. If you're looking at the black Ranger brayers that are the Tim Holtz ones, they're actually different. They have much more of a give to them. They're a bit more squishy, which is why Tim Holtz likes them for his techniques, because he doesn't use a jelly plate, but he likes to sort of brayer on his distress paints and stuff, and having that little bit of give kind of allows you to get better coverage than you might do if you're using a harder brayer just onto a flat surface, like, you know, working on top of a glass cutting mat. So that's a slightly different brayer. I haven't properly experimented with this on the jelly plate, so you'll probably see me bringing this out, or he also does the small version as well in one of my experiment videos later down the line. I'll probably go, oh yeah, I haven't really experimented with this, and remember. So you can also use those kind of brayers. And then this one as well, this is a hard rubber brayer, but this is a really cheap one. This was like £1.50 or something from the little set that I got on Amazon. It had a few of them in here, but I originally brought these because I was really enjoying creating like a patchwork effect of paint, but because I tend to work on smaller cards, I wanted smaller amounts of paint, so having like a 2-inch or a 4-inch brayer was putting too bigger patches on, so I wanted something smaller. So I think this is like a 1.5, yeah, almost 1.5 inch kind of little brayer. They're not brilliant, they're not very like evenly made. They're a little bit, some of them have got like bubbles in the rubber and stuff, so they're not perfect, but I just thought they were something to try out as a different way of adding small amounts of paint onto your jelly plate for creating more of like a patchwork kind of effect. So I've also got those as well. But you don't have to have a brayer to use your jelly plate. You can definitely use paintbrushes to add your paint onto the jelly plate. Yes, it's going to give a thicker amount of paint, which if you're building up lots of layers, you're going to have to wait longer for a thicker amount of paint to dry, but you can get some really cool effects with this. And one of my experiment videos, I keep mentioning all of these, I hope I remember to actually film all of these different things, but one of them I'm hopefully going to experiment with using the watercolour paints onto the jelly plate, and you can do some really cool effects by adding a thin layer of acrylic paint first, and then using like a large flat brush like this with watercolour paint on to kind of add watercolour-y stripy effect through the paint as well, and it gives really cool results. But you can just use them straight onto the plate, and this one in particular, this is one of Dina Wakley's gorgeous stiff bristled paintbrushes. These are fantastic because they've got that stiff bristle, you'll actually get some of the proper brushstroke kind of effect onto the plate as well. Or even if you have a brayer, you can apply your paint with a brayer and then run a clean brush through it, or a brush with more paint on to get a different effect, but it'll kind of like remove some of the paint in a cool brushstroke fashion. So you can do all sorts of different things with paintbrushes as well. You don't just have to have brayers. Then another thing is like spatulas and things. You can definitely use plastic spatulas. However, you do just want to be careful. Some of the really cheap ones like this one have got quite a sharp kind of seam on the side, and it probably won't harm your jelly plate, but just be wary. If you're using anything that's slightly sharp on your jelly plate, just be wary that you could mark the surface and it's something that you can't really repair. So just be a little bit wary about that. But I think this one would be alright, even though it has a few sharp feeling areas. I don't think it's sharp enough to actually hurt the jelly plate. Definitely something like a craft pick. Don't put that anywhere near your jelly plate, but I think this would be alright. But if you want a safer option, the media spatulas from Tonic are brilliant for adding paint onto there. Again, you're going to be applying it more thickly, which if you then sort of pull a print off would give you a completely different effect, because it would give you like some of that, I think it's called impasto, when it's like a 3D kind of effect, kind of like when I do my Nouveau Drop squishy effect, you get like the little ridges in it. You could get cool effects like that, but you can also scrape thinly with your palette knives and media spatulas and things as well, so you don't have to apply a thick amount of paint. And then you can also get really cheap options as well. This was from Amazon. It's supposed to be for like applying a face mask, but you could use this equally as well. It does have a rounded edge though, which would give you a different kind of effect, but you can definitely use any sort of silicone tool. And then on those lines as well, you can also use these kind of tools. So I did treat myself to the more expensive Dina Wakley ones, and the other one is a roundish kind of tool with two ends as well. But you can also get cheap versions of these too, and these are called like moulding tools, or sometimes people call them silicone brushes, but I think it's more of a moulding tool. I think they're supposed to be for if you're making things out of clay and you want to like get into deep kind of crevice sort of areas and smooth them out, you can sort of push a silicone tool into there and you're not going to hurt the clay, and you're going to smooth out like fingerprints and things. But you can actually use these to make marks on the jelly plate, or again you could use them to apply paint to the jelly plate as well. There's nothing to stop you using all sorts of different things instead of a brayer to apply paint to your jelly plate as well. So those are kind of all of the things that I've just thought of off the top of my head for applying your paint onto the jelly plate. But you can also use different tools to help you pull the paint off of your jelly plate as well. So imagine you've added your paint however you've added it, then you put your paper on top and you want to get nice even pressure over the back of your paper to be able to pull off the entire print. I mean, sometimes you don't get the entire print because some of the paint has dried, but sometimes it's because you haven't put enough pressure over every area. Imagine when you're stamping, you know, when you're using an acrylic block and a really big stamp, and sometimes you'll pull it off and there's a bit of the image missing because you didn't press that area, and that's why they invented stamping platforms, so that you can then go back in and re-ink it. But the kind of tool for that for a jelly plate is called a Baron. I don't have a proper Baron because they are quite pricey, but I found these on Amazon. It was a pack of 2, so I gave one to my mum as well. But it's got like dimples all over it, which I'm not sure how this is going to work, you know, with trying to create even pressure. I mean, I guess it will because of the little dots on there. They're all even, and then sort of rubbing this over the back of the gel print should help give, at least make sure that you touch the paper all over the plate to give some contact between the paper and the paint. So we can give this a go in one of the videos later on. I know I haven't tried these yet, but I just thought I might as well show them in this introduction video, in case they do become a good helpful tool. And then also, before I'd bought that, I had one of these laying around as well that I'd got cheap somewhere, and it was only £1. These are actually icing smoothers, so when you're icing a cake with fondant icing, you usually use one of these to make sure that the sides are really vertical. If you have your cake on a Lazy Susan, you can like spin it around and keep this around the side and make sure they've got a really nice smooth covering of the icing, get rid of all of the wrinkles, and you often have one on the top as well. But anyway, it's a lovely smooth sort of paddle kind of thing, and I think this would work equally as well as a Baron. I think the main advantages of a proper Baron, which I think the ones that I was looking at, the Speedball one, it's like in the £30 kind of mark. So I mean, I guess if you really get into your gel plate printing and really think it would help, then you could invest in one. But I think the reason behind them is because they have weight to them, and it's sort of the pressure, so you're not putting so much pressure on your wrists and stuff when you're pressing all over the plate. So this might help, but it's not very heavy, and neither's this one. So, you know, it's kind of like they might work to help sort of just make sure you get the coverage all over it, but you're still going to need to apply a little bit of pressure as well. But it's just something that I thought of that might help. So we'll be using these at some point throughout all of the experimental videos as well. So I think that's all I'm going to say in this introduction video. I haven't really introduced what gel printing actually is, but I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you'll probably have clicked on it because you already know what gel plate printing is. But it's kind of like the gel plate surface allows you to add your mediums to it, whether it is paint or whether it's something else, which we'll experiment with later on. And it kind of allows you to create these one-off kind of prints, whether you are layering up multiple layers of paint, letting them dry in between and then pulling it all off as one print, or whether you're creating individual layers but layering them all up onto the same piece of paper. You can get different effects, you know, doing those 2 different techniques, but it's still called a mono print because it is a one-off print that you're never going to be able to recreate again. You can get similar, but it's very difficult to create the exact results again because of like amount of paint, the temperature, the weather, you know, all sorts of different things affect the different results that you get. But yeah, I think if you're a fan of gel plate printing, then hopefully you're going to enjoy all of these experiment videos. Now I've done this introduction video, the next video, or the first video in the Gelli Experiment, will be up on my channel, and that is going to be looking at different types of paint. So we're going to be looking at fluid acrylic paints, heavy bodied acrylic paints, matte chalk paints, and we're going to do a little bit of a comparison between some metallic paints as well, just to see like some different sort of differences between them. But as I say, I am refilming that video, so it's not going to be a true experiments video because I have already done the experiment. But I think it's still going to be an interesting one because it did actually have surprising results when I did it the first time. I wasn't expecting one of the paints to perform the way it did. I thought a different paint would perform that way. So it's going to be an interesting one, I think, if you've not really experimented with different types of paints. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in a minute if you watch the next video. Bye!